Last month saw the first sedition case targeting journalists in Hong Kong since a former British colony returned to Chinese rule in 1997. Two former editors of Stand News, Chung Fu-kun and Patrick Lam, were found guilty of publishing seditious content. Stand News had faced criticism from authorities, but was seen by the population as one of the most credible Hong Kong outlets. Launched in 2014, it notably provided in-depth coverage of 2019's pro-democracy protests and the clashes with police, live streaming from the front lines. It was forced to cease operations 2 years later amid a crackdown on independent press. The judge had found that 11 of the 17 articles that were at the heart of this case carried seditious content. Prosecutors said they promoted, quote, illegal ideologies or smearing the security law and law enforcement officers. Here's how a former Stand journalist, Ronson Chan, reacted to the verdict.
Nobody told us that you may get arrested or prosecuted if you did any interviews or write anything. But now the situation has changed.
Well, the verdict also drew international concern. Chris Patten, the last British governor of Hong Kong, said that, quote, the baseless allegations and verdict of this trial mark a further sinister turn for media freedom in Hong Kong, as it is clear that political commentary and opinion pieces may violate national security. A spokesperson for the U.S. State Department said the verdict is a direct attack on media freedom and undermines Hong Kong's once proud international reputation for openness. In Beijing, the foreign ministry pushed back against these remarks and defended Hong Kong's handling of the case.
Hong Kong is a society governed by the rule of law. Violations of the law must be punished. Press freedom cannot be used as a shield for crimes and violations of the law.
Once a bastion of press freedom, Hong Kong has seen its vibrant local media landscape, formerly vibrant, crushed since China imposed this sweeping national security law on the city in 2020. And it's not just Stand News. Other independent, outspoken media outlets like Apple Daily were forced to shut down in recent years. In 2018, Hong Kong ranked 58th on the World Press Freedom Index. This year, it was 135th. For more, we can speak to Selina Cheng. She is an investigative reporter and the chairperson of the Hong Kong Journalists Association. Hello to you, Selina. Thank you for joining us on Scoop. First of all, I want to get your opinion. What is the significance of these verdicts from the Stand trial?
Yeah, the Stand trial's verdict is especially important to Hong Kong newsrooms because the newsroom and their operations and their content were microscopically scrutinized during this court case. The authorities looked at all the articles they've published, not just the ones that have now been ruled guilty, but also hundreds of others to try to paint the picture of the intention of these editors. And ultimately, they were found guilty of sedition based on really content that would have been seen as normal before all these happened.
Sorry to cut you off, Selina. Can you elaborate on that? Give us an idea of what the seditious content is.
Yeah, so in the verdict, the judge made very detailed explanation of his verdict, and that includes, for example, voicing sharp critical comments when the public opinion polls show that there's a widespread dissatisfaction about the government. The judge deemed that seditious because these critical comments will create further chaos. And other example is, for example, there was the commentator saying that Apple Daily editors had remained at the site of a disaster. That was an analogy. The judge believed that was inappropriate, and ultimately this article was deemed seditious. So really there are lots of points like that in the verdict where a lot of people might see that as some form of disagreement from the judge on those articles, and that became a guilty verdict that, underlaid his guilty verdict. So I think that's going to really start affecting newsroom operations in Hong Kong because people feel like they have to be really careful walking on eggshells if one of the articles get taken out and a judge scrutinizes it and he or she disagrees with it, then it could become a national security crime.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there. But first of all, so now we have Stand News who shut its offices, Apple Daily who shut its offices, forced to shut its offices essentially. Can you tell us what the state of independent press is like in Hong Kong?
Yeah, so actually after the closure of Apple Daily and Stand News, there has been the birth of maybe dozens of much smaller independent media in Hong Kong. Most of them will shy away from reporting on politics or anything sensitive, holding public power to account. Some of these talk about pop culture, lifestyle, the kind of small newsroom of 4 to 5 people maximum. So the kind of content that they create is a lot more fragmented. We don't have a huge newsroom like Apple Daily or Stand News before, which were between 50 to 100 people between these two. Their resources are a lot more limited. They can't get advertising, but rely on crowdfunding. But still, I think this is a sign of the resilience of the Hong Kong journalist community. And so for us as a union, we try our best to support their work and help them whenever they need our assistance.
This is a point you touched on earlier, but I'd like you to elaborate if you can. I saw reports saying that a sizable number of journalists in Hong Kong have engaged in self-censorship over fears about what could come back after they publish material that might be deemed seditious or not. Can you tell us how significant of an issue that is in Hong Kong, self-censorship?
Yeah, self-censorship or internal censorship, we call it at pro-government or newsrooms that are a little bit more formalized, bigger newsrooms. I think often the top editors would get calls from officials or even from big companies to express their dissatisfaction about certain coverage. And very often these editors, for fear of any potential trouble, will tend to go along with these requests, just take down stories, change headlines, change the content. Recently, I've heard that stories about land development, real estate were also shelved because these newspaper editors didn't want any trouble. So that's really a kind of what we call window guidance. It's like you've got an official telling you what to do from this window that opens up into your newsroom. Another form of self-censorship is what some people in Hong Kong would call censorship of love. You interview people that maybe you respect or you even might agree with their viewpoints, but you feel like what they say may get this person into trouble if you quote them. And so you might consider letting this person know, hey, like, this sounds a bit too much. Maybe we won't use it, even though you did mean to say such a comment. So even reporters would think on behalf of their interviewees or their sources to avoid quoting things that might be seen as problematic later on.
Right. And
but really, the line is really blurred. Yeah.
Right. And the risk being, we're running out of time. Sorry, Selina. The risk being, what you mentioned in a recent press conference, is that dozens of journalists in Hong Kong have been harassed. Tell us more about that.
Yes, this is completely new. Reporters, their family members, and even some of their family members' employers had received anonymous letters or emails veiled as threats asking these people to cut contact with the reporters as an attempt to intimidate them and ask them not to continue their journalism. Some reporters had received anonymous letters at their mailbox, and obviously that put people on their toes because nobody wants their job to cause their family member to lose their work or their employment. We decided that this was a serious situation. The harassment was very severe, so we called it out during our press conference last week.
And real quickly, Selina, last thought. What does the press look like in 5 years in Hong Kong?
I think most of us in the press right now are living on a timeline of maybe maximum 6 months into the future. It's really hard to tell how Hong Kong as a whole and our press is going to look like in 5 years. I think a general thought, maybe people think it would look more similar to the one in the mainland, where the press is a lot more controlled by the government or agencies related to the government, and there could be more explicit directives coming from those authorities to tell the press, what to write and what not to write. For now in Hong Kong, these are not formalized. still, in the form of phone calls instead of an official order or a memorandum, but that could change. We really don't know how it's going to look like, but it doesn't look like something that will improve in the next few years.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time, Selina Cheng from the Hong Kong Journalists Association.
Thank you.
That brings us to the quote of the week, and it comes from the former editor-in-chief of Stan News, one of the two journalists on trial, Chung Pui-kin. He said, quote, "The media should not self-censor, but report. Freedom of speech should not be restricted on the grounds of eradicating dangerous ideas, but rather it should be used to eradicate dangerous ideas." That's it for this week. Thank you for watching Scoop, and please stay tuned to Paris Direct.
Мы перестали ездить по России, так как отдали время, свои отпуска на, скажем так, за границу. И поэтому немножко здесь было позаброшено. Мы все время говорили, когда будем на пенсии, мы Россию и объедем. Ну, скажем так, оно у нас примерно это время и подошло. То есть жизнь сделала так, что у нас и пенсионный возраст, и наши слова как бы сбылись. Но за границу мы все равно верим и уверены, что мирное время настанет, и мы вернемся.
Ну, честно сказать, страшно. Вот если вот одним словом, то страшно. И, наверное, не очень сейчас по деньгам, так скажем, да, все-таки дороговато Европа. Но пока я думаю, что у нас Россия ничуть не хуже.
The French are always on strike. That is, of course, when they're not on vacation or eating baguettes with stinky cheese.
But are these cliches really true? And if not, what's life actually like in France?
French Connections is your guide to the intricacies of life here in France.
Bringing you straight to the heart of a truly French point of view.
Don't miss French Connections Plus
On France 24, bien sûr.